This is Kits and Wagers. I'm Adam Zdroik, joined by Chris Owen. We're betting on game week 25 in the Premier League. Chris is coming off a 4-0 week, I think. So it was, if I'm correct, you went 4-0, 0-4, and then 4-0. Is that right? Or am I missing something in there?
I think that's correct. Yeah, I think 3 weeks ago I was again 4-0, and then the week in between there had some soul searching to do after going 0-4, and then this past week it seemed like the bets just kind of popped out to me, and we went 4-0 last week. So we're back to that. We're again in the positive. I think we were in the positive ahead of that week, but yeah, back to the positive in a bigger way. So happy to do that, and we'll see about this week, though. We got some interesting matches. Maybe at least the research felt a little bit more difficult, but that doesn't mean that we don't have winners here.
Yeah, we got Chris coming to us as usual, 7 a.m. time. So we're both sipping on the coffee, but I just got back from Florida where they don't have legalized betting, and just the dumb thing about that is like we had the Champions League midweek, and we have these games where like Inter win to nil, and Napoli win to nil, Leipzig take a point, that kind of a thing. And it's like 50, like hindsight's 2020 kind of a thing. I see these matches, I'm like, oh man, I would have won bets on all these games, but in reality, like I would have done something stupid to where I wouldn't have won any money.
Lineups,
It's
lineups would have came out, and you would have been like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm
Yeah, I
kind
would
of
have
about
changed
the
my
over here."
mind on something. Yeah, just something like that. It's just funny how you look at it. It's like, oh, I can't bet on these, but I was gonna be 100% on these bets, but I couldn't bet on them, so it doesn't matter. But we all
Yeah.
know that wouldn't happen. So, but our records for the Premier League, Chris is now up to 32, 27, and 1. I'm at 42 and 21. Our team parlay, we'll talk about it later, but we're struggling along, but we're still up $300 on that. If I can see the graphic here, I'm still up about $2,400. Chris is up 600. So there you go. As Chris said, these games are a little harder. I looked at these in the morning, and compared our bets here. There's a lot of bets with minus odds, and that's something we don't usually do. It was just some weird games. We only have 8 Premier League games this weekend because there's 4 teams not in action, so we had to pick and choose what we wanted. Then we got a special team parlay that we're talking about. So we got a lot of relegation talk, maybe half the teams, but there's no one that stands out, is I guess what I'll say here. So Fulham, Wolverhampton is the first match we're talking about, and Fulham are home. They escaped. I guess I'll say they escaped against Brighton last match. They were probably outplayed for 90 minutes. Got a late goal, somehow sealed that win, and you can get them at home at plus 135 to win. Wolverhampton are plus 225. The draw is plus 230, and then over 2.5 goals plus 110. Under 2.5 goals minus 135. And before I let you have it, I didn't finish on the Wolverhampton. They actually outplayed Bournemouth, and the same thing happened to them. They gave up a goal, and then they lost 1-0 at home against Bournemouth. So these teams are kind of on opposite ends. Fulham got outplayed. Wolverhampton outplayed the other team, yet these teams had opposite results. So what do you think about this matchup now?
We're seeing. I mean, coming into the season, Wolverhampton, we obviously kind of expected them to be where they're at in the table. I don't think, kind of middling, I guess, anywhere from below 8th to, above 16th, I guess, or above 18th or so. So they're kind of doing what we expected. They have maybe been a little bit better. Was last week a blip? I kind of expected them to win that. I think we actually did bet on Wolverhampton last week, and I don't think either of us bet on a winner, but I kind of, in my heart of hearts, I expected Wolverhampton to at least pull a point out of that, but that's a big result for Bournemouth. And then on the other side of thing, I mean, Fulham, 3 straight, I guess one of those came in the FA Cup, but 3 straight wins. They beat Nottingham Forest, they beat Brighton, and then, ahead of that, they're just on a really good run here. They're pretty decent at home, so taking that into account, Wolves not really great at home. I think when I look, they have Wolves have kind of struggled. I guess they're in the bottom third in terms of points gained. They've got 9 points on 11 matches, but the big thing is that they haven't really scored any goals. They've got 8 goals in 11 matches away from home, so I don't really think that we'll see a ton of goals from Wolverhampton. And then Fulham, just the way that they've been playing like I mentioned, 1-0 last week, 2-0 the week before, and then this was an FA Cup game against the Championship side, but that was 3-2, and then a 0-0 against Chelsea and a 1-1 again in the FA Cup, which was the original before the replay. So not a ton of goals out of either team. And so, because of that, when I looked last night, the under 2.5 was -130. It looks like that it's gone up a bit to -135, which is, sounds like some other people are also on this bet. But yeah, a little definitely, higher odds than I typically would go with, but just given the match, there's not a ton that I'm like on some of these other matches. I'll maybe offer a secondary bet, but this one I just have the under 2.5 because I don't have the well like Adam does with the corners bets. So yeah, I'm just gonna go under 2.5. It was -130 last night. If you can get better odds anywhere else, I would go that. But on DraftKings right now, I'm seeing -135.
Yeah, I was just trying to look around, see if I'm sure you can find -130 at some sports book. It's out there somewhere, I assume. I wonder if the odds moved a little bit here this morning because Marco Silva came out. It doesn't seem like Mitrovic is going to be ready to play. So this game is Friday. I didn't mention that. This is a standalone Friday night match. Is it? It is Fulham.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Against Craven Cottage. I just made this graphic incorrect. I see now. I put Wolves on the left side, but yeah. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. I was kind of maybe thinking goals in this game just because of I don't know Wolverhampton playing a little differently, but without Mitrovic, you can't really bet on over in full matches when Mitrovic doesn't play. So I'm with that one. I like that one. We'll see how these teams come out. I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned Fulham have won 3 straight. And I don't know. I kind of feel like they're just, I guess it's good on them. They're winning matches without playing overly well, which is, I guess, the sign of a good team when you win matches and you're not, dominating, you're not controlling matches or anything. I mean, they snuck out that Brighton win. They beat Nottingham Forest a couple weeks ago at home. And I mean, that was I wouldn't say they controlled that match or anything. It was pretty even, I'd say. But, they got the 2-0 result, which was what was needed. So, I mean, you can look past through the results, and they've been okay. But as Chris said, I'm going to corners here. And one of the things I saw was Wolverhampton are, I think for the season, they're top 10 in corners taken for the season. But more importantly, they're even higher than that under Lopetegui. I think it's over the past maybe couple months. It's about 8 game weeks between these teams, and Wolverhampton are actually averaging more corners than Manchester City per match, which is mostly under Lopetegui. So you kind of look at that. Away from home is a little different, but you put into the equation Mitrovic probably not going to start, and that I don't think Fulham are playing that well. And I wonder if, Wolves just come out attacking a little more. So I got Wolves race to 5 corners at +145. I took under 4.5 corners in the first half for Wolverhampton last week. I think Wolves had 8 or 9 corners in the first half themselves. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna go to them here instead of messing around with one of those first half bets here. So, but who do you like to win this one? I mean, we're not really picking a side here. Are you just going Fulham at home? I guess we didn't mention. I mean, this is Friday night, so this is going to be under the lights standalone game. So maybe that adds something to it. But do you think Fulham will get this win?
Yeah, there's a couple factors here. I mean, Mitrovic not being out or not being in is a pretty big hit to them. I mean, I guess would it be Vinicius who would start in his place?
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know how
it
they
could
do this,
be.
but
They actually put Cordova-Reed up top in their last game and
Oh,
started Harry Wilson on the wing. So it could be something like that, or it could be, with Vinicius there up front as well. So
yeah, I guess that's a factor. I mean, yeah, and then Wolves, like I mentioned, is like what 8 points from or 9 points from 11 matches away from home. So not great. And I think Fulham's actually pretty decent at home. I think they're one of the better teams
yeah,
in
six
terms
three
of
and
points.
three.
Yeah, so only 3 losses. They've pulled 21 points from 12 matches, which is for them pretty solid and a big reason why they find themselves in such an advantageous place in the table. But yeah, I think I'd go if I had to take a team here. I'd go Fulham. I don't know. I think the money line was just above 100. Let's see. The money line was plus 135. So that's
Yeah,
honestly a little bit more appetizing than some of the other ones, and that gets into positive territory as well. But yeah, I think I'd rather go Fulham. No, Mitrovic is a bit of a concern, which is, I mean, even without him, that's why I'm going to under 2.5 too. And then even looking at that is in 6 of the past 7 Premier League matches for Fulham, they've had under 2 goals total in each of those matches. So I think Fulham win, maybe 1-0, 2-0, and yeah, keep it moving after that.
yeah.
And are you leaning Fulham as well?
I'm thinking I might look at like a possible 1-1 bet here, exact score. I was even thinking, what if I guess this might be the same as betting the exact score of 1-1. If we did a single game parlay of under 2.5 goals, Wolves race to 5 corners, and then plug in both teams to score. Um, just when you do both teams to score in under 2.5, obviously you're hoping for 1-1. So I guess the only way you can win
Mm-hmm.
is 1-1. So I guess why not just do the exact score bet? So I guess that same game parlay is pointless. So ignore what I just said.
Yeah. Can you get any good goal bands? I guess 1 to 2 goals is plus 100 for this game.
Yeah, that yeah, I
Or
mean,
2 to 3 is plus 100 as well. But I think I'd rather go the 1 to 2.
yeah, the 1-2 would be kind of in your range, just a little better odds, but you're just getting a goal. You're gonna lose on a scoreless draw. So, but
Yeah,
without Mitrovic, I mean, scoreless draw is in play. So, hence Chris's bet
totally.
here of under 2.5 goals.
Yeah, a little safer. That's why you get the better odds.
So Wolverhampton, they are battling relegation. They're just above. They're 4 points above Leeds here, and the next match we're talking about is the relegation battle. Two last place teams, yeah, because Bournemouth got a pretty big win last weekend, and they're slightly out of the zone. But we got Leeds on 19 points. We got Southampton on 18 points. So this is a big game. These teams need points. Leeds are plus 100 to win. Southampton are plus 270 to win. The draw is plus 260. Over 2.5 goals is plus 100. Under 2.5 goals is minus 125. I don't think there's anything relevant here injury wise. Um, Leeds have been, they have some guys out, but they most of their regulars are kind of starting. Junior Firpo's been starting for the new caretaker manager kind of a thing. I guess Southampton also kind of caretaker manager thing going on, and we'll see what they do. But they kind of went with a what was it 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 kind of a thing last game. So with Maitland Niles playing right back, we'll see what happens. I mean, they just beat Chelsea. They just won 1-0 at Chelsea. So you got to figure they're going to kind of run out the same lineup. Do you think that Chelsea result was uh, a mistake, just a lucky result for them, or is it Southampton? They no longer have Nathan Jones, so now they're going to start winning games, kind of a thing. Probably not, but
I wouldn't say winning games, maybe like staying competitive in them, but they brought it, they got some players in the transfer market there in January. And, you know, I'm not going to give too much credit to Chelsea, but like that, Chelsea's a side who can't score the ball at all. So like they have struggled so mightily to score. So, yes, they got the players, but, we just saw that Southampton can shut them out. We'll talk about it on the Sunday game, but they're not a team scoring goals. So that's that. But yeah, I mean, it took the brilliance of James Ward-Prowse on one free kick to give them 3 points, and it was a huge 3 points. But yeah, tough to say. This is as we mentioned, they love the 6-pointer reference here, but it feels pretty big for both teams. I will say I think Southampton is one of the they're not good away from home. I mean, both of these teams have struggled away from home. Leeds more than anyone, but they're playing at home. And then in terms of how they're playing at home, they're 3-4-4. So they've dropped 4 games. Southampton, they're pretty much mid-table in terms of playing away. So they've actually gained more points playing away, which they'll be doing at Elland Road, than they have playing at home. So both teams, this is
You're
a
talking
tough
about
game.
Leeds?
I'm talking about Southampton is there.
All right, yeah. Southampton, because they have 4 wins away from home. Yeah, okay.
Yep, exactly. And Leeds are, they're okay, but most of their points have come away from home. So, anyways, I think it's tough to say, but I think I bet I would, if I had to bet a very specific bet, I would go draw here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go Southampton double chance. Last night when I looked, it was -130. I'm not sure if it's gone up a little bit here, but yeah, I mean, they got a result against Chelsea. Leeds seem to be in every single game and then ultimately just like give away points, whether it's, from a win to a draw or a draw to a loss. And I don't see, from a quality and talent perspective, there isn't much to teeter in favor of Leeds here. So I think I'm just going to stick with a safe-ish bet and go double chance and get them both there. But then also I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some goals there. I think when I looked, the over 2.5 was like -165. So you're not going to get great odds there. And if you think that's the case, then you probably think that both teams to score is in play too.
Over 2.5 plus 100.
Oh, okay. So I mean, that's also an option. But if you think that's the case too, you're going to get both teams to score at -125. So a couple of bets there. But yeah, I think goals and then a Southampton either taking a draw or a win.
Yeah, we got Chris is on Southampton double chance here, -130. Yeah. I was just scrolling through Leeds.
You're not into that?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, is either of these teams going to win? Maybe just, we talked about, was it last week? It was like, we never bet draws. Maybe we should just bet draw here. Just like two of the worst teams in the league. Like, yeah, I was looking at the Leeds results and the big stats going around. It's like they haven't won since November. And I look back at that game. They beat Bournemouth 4-3. That was that wild game. Bournemouth had a couple goals early. Yeah, Bournemouth were up 3-1 in that one, and then Leeds came back and won 4-1 or 4-3. And before that, Leeds won at Liverpool 2-1. So that was the last time Leeds won a game in the Premier League. So
feels like it was last season.
Chris's bet makes sense here. Do you want to bet on Southampton? That's another question. I did consider the over 2.5 goals, but then it's like, well, Leeds have trouble scoring every game. Southampton have trouble scoring every game. Granted, both their back lines are pretty bad, but what should we bet on here? So I just went yes on both teams to score. I mean, I mentioned before the show, just the bets that we fell into are kind of the favored bets. It's kind of not what we usually do on this show, but yes, on both teams, the score is -125. I just feel like another 1-1 result is in play here. I mean, sure, it could pop off and be 2-2 or something crazy like that, but how are these teams going to play here? They need the points, but they also can't lose. So, like, Leeds cannot lose this game at home against the last place side. I mean, that's what Chelsea just did. But yeah, Leeds are battling relegation. So, is either of these teams going to come out just, full attack and just going for it? Or do you think just Southampton plays the same way they played against Chelsea last week, a little safer, and then maybe try and sneak a goal in off a free kick or off a counter or something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I guess it's not going to be the prettiest of games, but I'm staying away from anything specific and going to just go the double chance. But I guess for reference to Southampton's in their past, I guess in the past 3 matches, it's been 2-2, 1-1, and then Southampton, which was so earlier this year was that August, one of the first games of the season, it was 2-2. So that was like maybe the last game that they were able to find the back of the net. But they had and then prior to that last season it was 1-1 and 1-0. So maybe, I mean, I don't know, tough to take anything away from that. But Southampton is undefeated in their last 3 matches against Leeds here in the Premier League. Pretty small sample size, but it's tough to see. Leeds are struggling mightily. Southampton coming off a big result at Chelsea. I don't really see it. It's tough to go to the goals. I would rather just like keep it pretty open ended here and go double chance. It looks like, I mean, you're kind of on a similar, not necessarily taking a team.
Yeah, I just feel like if maybe Leeds come out, they're playing at home, almost like a must-win situation. They come out, maybe they get a goal or two, but just the way they played this season, they're probably then gonna allow a goal or two. So that they're just not gonna get a clean sheet. Granted, I think they had a recent home match which they did get a clean sheet. Maybe it was the other way around. I'm thinking they lost against Nottingham Forest. Okay, yeah. Maybe it was that Brentford game. That was a scoreless draw there. But yeah, just two teams sitting at the bottom of the table, and this is kind of what we're left with. I'm avoiding all Southampton corner bets the rest of the season. We just don't know how they're going to play under a caretaker manager, and just how different their lineups have been week to week, really. I mean, they've tried a little bit of everything at fullback. I mean, maybe Kyle Walker-Peters is back in the starting 11, maybe not because they won without him last week. I mean, the fact that they're starting Maitland-Niles at right back is pretty telling because I believe he wanted to leave Arsenal because he didn't want to play in like a defensive role. Wasn't that like the reasoning?
It was
That
trying
he
to play like
wanted?
holy and mid.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, at West Brom, right? Didn't he go to West Brom and then back up to
Yeah.
Southampton?
Yeah, so it's just like they added James Bree for Nathan Jones. So Nathan Jones is out. James Bree is dropped from right back. And now, like, Stuart Armstrong is starting again. I mean, I don't think he's barely played this season. Then they got their
I'm a
two.
big Stuart Armstrong guy.
Yeah, I mean,
He's usually like pretty productive.
yeah, he kind of fell out of favor there with Hasenhuttl this year. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it seems like they have so many guys that are all on the same level. It's just that, so you don't know who's going to start. I mean, this Onuachu guy is like 6'7". Maybe Shea Adams is back in there, but maybe not. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Leeds they've had two in the past 5 games, two big opportunities to get points on other teams in the relegation battle. They had Nottingham Forest, that was 4 games ago, and then they had Everton last week. In both times, it's been 1-0.
I mean, they were up 2-0 at Manchester United and then let those goals in.
Yeah. So it's like, is this the third time's the charm against another relegation team where they're like, oh yeah, okay, let's hold it in, let's pack it in, and then try to score. I don't see it happening.
Third time's a charm. Is that how it works when you're playing relegation teams?
That's not how it works, and that's why I'm going Southampton double chance.
Yeah. All right, so we have somewhat teams that are, we talked about Tottenham recently, and it surprised me that they're sitting fourth or whatever they were in the table. It still surprises me that Tottenham are sitting fourth in the table, but there they are. They're 1 point above Newcastle. They're on 42 points, 7 behind Manchester United. They're home against Chelsea on Sunday, standalone game. A little earlier, though. This is not a nighttime game. We got Tottenham plus 150 to win. Chelsea are plus 190 to win. And the draw is plus 240. Over 2.5 goals is plus 100. Under 2.5 goals is minus 125. I feel like those are the odds for every game we're talking about here. Roughly, yeah. It's kind of the same odds. All these games kind of the same implied goal total here. But Tottenham, Chelsea, I mean, what is there to talk about here? I mean, Tottenham starting Ben Davies, getting the win against West Ham last weekend. Ben Davies on the wing back, I should say. That's probably the more important part. Chelsea, just being Chelsea, I guess. So What are the thoughts here? These teams, I guess they won't have Champions League next week. There's still another week and a half before those games, but Tottenham at home, Chelsea, can they do something? What do we think here?
It's like that meme where it's like the person like with a stick just like poking something that's laying down. It's like move,
Do
and that's how
something.
it, yeah,
Yes.
that's how it feels like watching Chelsea right now. They've been shut out in 6 of their past 9 matches across all competitions, despite spending £500 million on players. They can't score, which is kind of important here. I don't, yeah, I don't. You also mentioned that Tottenham is like somehow fourth place in the league, and yeah, I mean, it seems surprising to me too. They've been pulling out some decent. I mean, they got the 1-0 over City, right?
Yeah.
Um, and beat West Ham. Obviously, dropped one to Leicester and sandwiched in the middle there, and then 1-0 against AC Milan. I think the biggest question for me is like, who's going to start? Is it Richarlison or Heung-min Son? And that I don't know. It's so weird because it's like every time. I mean, Richarlison should arguably get more minutes. Like Son has not been that great for them. Obviously, comes off the bench last week against West Ham and scores. Whereas Richarlison, I mean, I watched most of the first half and he looked, it's kind of pedestrian. But I, that's a big lineup decision for them. And then, I mean, Chelsea also. It's like which new signing do they start? I think if they go with Chilwell and Reece James at outside back, at least they get a lot. They get a lot more from the wing backs, in terms of attacking. So I think that's their better lineup. But yeah, I don't just the way that Chelsea have played, they haven't been able to score. And somehow the way some of these matches work is just like I think I'd rather go with the under. Um, for my bet at least. So I think I found under 2.5 was -125. And yeah, looking at some of the previous results, I guess earlier this year, that was back in August as well. 2-2. So definitely, outside of that under 2.5, but then 2-0, 1-0, 2-0. So I think, yeah, tough. This is a tough game to bet on. I don't know if you felt the same way, but
I mean, all
I'm
these
going the
are.
under. I'm going the under, and then if you're along those lines, I have two secondary bets, and that's both teams to score. No, that's plus 105. So if you think Chelsea, gets shut out for the seventh time in 10 games, you can go with the both teams to score no, or even Tottenham. But I don't. I think Tottenham at least find the back of the net, and then this one was even higher odds, but you can get Tottenham clean sheet at plus 215. So again, riding that Chelsea lack of goals,
Might as
you
well
can
just do Tottenham win to nil at that point.
yeah, I mean something like that, or yeah, but clean sheet plus 215, pretty crazy odds there. I'm just really honing in on the lack of Chelsea scoring here, so I feel like if they score one goal, and it might bite me, but keep it open ended with the under 2.5. What are you going here?
So, like, what do you think Graham Potter is going to do here? Do you think the reasoning for the rotation last week was because they were in Dortmund, they had a busy week kind of thing, so it's like, okay, well, we'll start Aspilicueta at right back, we'll start this young guy Fofana, we'll start Madueke on the right wing, that kind of a thing, or is it he just doesn't really know what to do to score goals, so he's just gonna insert some of these young guys to see what they can do, kind of a thing. Um, because I mean, who knows really? I mean, at this point, maybe it's just best to just try and put in whoever is getting the most chances right now. Felix has been their guy that's getting the most,
Yeah,
probably the best looks there playing as an attacking midfielder, but like, is there an answer? Is Havertz going to be back in the starting 11 because they had a week of rest? Is Ziyech going to be back in there? Assume Reece James is going to be back in there. Like, how big of a factor is it that they almost kind of, I don't want to say B squad against Southampton, but there's definitely some positions where it was kind of some questionable decisions made by Potter in that game.
yeah. I mean, definitely not a B squad when you look at how much that team costs. But yeah. I mean, Chelsea's their best lineup, or I guess their best defensive lineup is probably Ben Chilwell, Reece James at outside back, and then Thiago Silva. And I mean, you could go probably Badia Shelley. And then, yeah, I mean, probably him over Koulibaly, but I don't know. I think that's their best lineup. Koulibaly hasn't been as impressive as I thought he'd be since coming over, but yeah, I don't know. I think that, and then from that, you got your middle of the park is Enzo, Kovacic, and then João Felix, and then you just set around them with whatever high-priced winger you can. I mean, I don't. Tough to say, but yeah,
if no one's scoring,
we'll see what they play. I think they gotta at least have João Felix, and then maybe Havertz up front.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems most likely. Yeah, so I was trying to decide on this one, trying to look at some corners, trying to look at some goals like Chris's. I ended up with corners, and I almost took Chelsea to have more corners here. But if you look at some of these Chelsea games, while they're not scoring, they're getting opportunities. I think that's kind of the difference here. They're at least getting opportunities on net. And I was kind of surprised. Last week I actually took West Ham race to 5 corners against Tottenham. Kind of escaped with that one. That was pretty good odds there. Plus 200 something on that one. I think Chelsea are about plus 140, but I was kind of aided by Tottenham getting a couple goals there, and then West Ham having to push a little more in the second half. But I mean, if you look at some of the corner numbers, Tottenham get a decent amount of corners, even though they play their brand of kind of sitting back and then going off the counter a little bit, kind of a thing. I wonder if they'll go Davies again on the wing. I mean, that's obviously helps defensively. That I don't know if that was the main reason West Ham only had 6 shots last week, but Davies is obviously more defensive than Perisic is, so that's something to keep an eye on. Either way, I just think Chelsea are desperate to win. They're desperate for points right now, and I think they're just going to come out and try to, I don't know, stick it to Tottenham, and that's going to result in corners. And the opposite end of that, Tottenham are going to be off the counter. So I think both teams are going to get corners. So I'm going over 4.5 corners in the first half. That is minus 125. So, yeah, I mean, both ours could hit. It's just one of these games where it's like, maybe if Chelsea were in form, this would be like a 2-2 result. But can you see a 2-2 result right now with the way Chelsea are playing? I mean, that's kind of hard to bet on. So,
I'd be surprised if we
goals there.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we saw more than because of my bet, but I'd be surprised if we saw like multiple goals out of Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's just that it's just hard. It's just one of the things where it's like, well, it's hard to bet on Leeds to win. It's hard to bet on Southampton. It's hard to bet on goals to happen in a Chelsea game. So basically all these matchups we're talking about today, it's like, well, it's hard to bet on this certain thing to happen. So I'm just going to go the other way. And then inevitably, there's going to be 5 goals in this Chelsea game. Leeds are going to win 3-0, something stupid like that. So that's just how it goes in the betting world.
Interesting note here, but Chelsea are undefeated in their last 8 matches against Tottenham across all competitions. That takes in 2 League Cup games. This looks like a friendly, but I mean, in the Premier League, 1, 2, 5 undefeated in their last 5 matches in the Premier League against Tottenham. So, luckily, neither of our bets take Tottenham specifically, but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna look at double chance, but there's no value there. You'd have to go draw no bet route with Chelsea. That's plus 100. And at that point, I mean, you're just hoping to get your money back because do you think Chelsea are going to win? We'll see.
Yeah, I would not bet against. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let's take Chelsea on a win. But interesting that they've kind of dominated this matchup.
Yeah.
Plus 190 on the win away from home. If you're feeling confident.
If you think this is Graham Potter's time, bet Chelsea to win.
Yeah.
All right, so we got also Sunday. I mean, I mentioned the standalone match, but that's mainly because the Cup Final, League Cup Final, EFL Cup Final, that is Sunday as well, and that one is what time is that? That's like 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We got Manchester United against Newcastle United at Wembley, and this is going to be a fun one. We have Manchester United plus 120 to win, Newcastle plus 225 to win. Draw is plus 245. Over 2.5 goals is plus 100. Under 2.5 goals minus 125. So I think the big thing here, and just in terms of we don't have these stats on the site, so if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, I just have the cheat sheet up for the full weekend. But just for these two teams here, the main talking points, we got Bruno Guimaraes is back from a 3-game suspension, and we got Casemiro back from a 3-game suspension as well. Also, Nick Pope is not starting. I believe it's former Liverpool goalkeeper Loris Karius has to start for Newcastle because Dubravka is cup tied because he was on Manchester United the first half of the season. So those are the lineup talking points for this one. But it's going to be a fun game. I mean, we got two top 5 teams going against each other, and I think the big thing, you get Bruno Guimaraes back for Newcastle, and we kind of seen some recent matches where their midfield just isn't as good without him in there, and he's going to be a big help. So what are your thoughts here? Are you thinking goals? I mean, based off your bet here, you are thinking goals. So you think Manchester United are going to get the goals against maybe more of a full strength Newcastle, who have been one of the best back lines in the league this season?
Yeah, definitely at odds here with Newcastle being so strong defensively all season long, whereas United, they're filling it up. They're putting the ball in the back of the net. They've been really good. And I was just like looking at the league. This is more based on kind of League Cup form, I guess, and with a little sprinkling of what they've done in the Premier League. The past 5 matches in the League Cup, they've scored at least 2 goals. So that led me to my own bet here, which is this is for the League Cup parlay. I'm going to take Manchester United total goals over 1.5. It's plus 120. Looking back at some of their matchups here, they beat Aston Villa 4-2, Burnley 2-0, Charlton Athletic 3-0, and then in the 2-legged semifinal against Nottingham Forest, it was 3-0 and 2-0. So no shortage of goals there. And if I had to do a supplementary pick, I like Manchester United money line. Both teams, not a ton of silverware in recent times, so it'll be good for whether it's Eddie Howe or Eric Ten Hag to go in there and maybe win their first trophy with the club. That's a pretty big deal. And I think no Nick Pope is definitely a disadvantage. I've seen Loris Karius in a final, and it was not pretty. So that leads me to believe that I just much rather take Manchester United here. I think, they're just really strong right now and a dark horse to win not only this, but to win the Premier League too. It's been fun. I mean, I'm not a United fan by any means, but I like how they set up, and they've just really sprinkled in some players. And I think everyone has to root for Marcus Rashford regardless. He just seems like a good dude, and he's absolutely in scorching form right now. So I think maybe Rashford goal and they get the result here. And for the record, this is in regular time. This is not in extra time. I think they get it done in 90 minutes.
How much of a factor do you think playing at Wembley Stadium is going to have here? So, I mean, Manchester United and Newcastle this season both have been maybe 2 of the best teams when playing at home. And then you go away from home, things are a little different. I mean, Manchester United have the -3 goal differential. A lot of that was the Manchester City match. But Newcastle also for them, their games just seem a little more defensive. 23 total goals scored in 11 away matches. Do you think Wembley is going to have and take any part into this? Is it going to be maybe more tentative because it's a final from early on, or do you think these teams are going to want to attack from the start, kind of thing, and just kind of force the issue?
I definitely think it'll be. I mean, classically, finals are always a little more tentative. I'd be surprised if we saw like a 2-3 or 3-3. I would rather. I think 2-1, 2-0, something like that is what it ends up being. But yeah, I mean, both teams traveling from relatively same distance down there. I think both clubs obviously haven't been at Wembley in a bit, so more so Newcastle. But yeah, it'll be This is one I'm looking forward to watching. Tentative match though. I wouldn't bet over like 4 goals.
Yeah, last week, I mean, we talked about the Manchester United Leicester game, and you took Rashford to score. I think that's another. I mean, I think you grabbed it at like minus 105 to score or something on a show. I'm not sure what he ended up at, but he scored, I don't know, in the 20th minute or something like that. But yeah, I mean, if you think Manchester United are going to score, might as well just throw Rashford to score because it seems like he has, I don't know, if Manchester United score, it's going to be 50% chance it is Rashford. So there's that. But I'm going Newcastle over 4.5 corners at minus 120. Newcastle quietly have taken the most corners in the league this season. And I mean, we're getting minus 120 for over 4.5 corners. It's kind of crazy. I mean, this is a neutral site. This is not at Manchester United, so that maybe that comes into play a little bit. But it's not like Manchester United are limiting teams from taking corners, and I think it's just going to be a back and forth match. I think there's going to be opportunities for both sides. Maybe it is tentative a little bit in the first however long, but I kind of think with Bruno back in the midfield for Newcastle, they're going to kind of try and play this like it's a home match for them. I think they're going to try and just come out and attack a little more than usual to try and get, Manchester United on their back heels a little bit. But either way, I mean, this is a full 90 bet over 4.5 corners at minus 120. I'm probably just going to take this straight up as well. It just seems like it's a pretty good number here for the team with the most corners in the league on a neutral field here. So Team Parlay, I got over 4.5 corners for Newcastle, minus 120. Chris has Manchester United over 1.5 goals at plus 120. That's plus 303 odds. And our Team Parlay it's up $362 for the season on $100 bets. So hopefully we can get this one.
Plus 300 odds. That would be huge for the parlay here. I think we'd really boost up that profit range.
Yeah, we might be in a range where we're going to be in the positive no matter what, even at 8-14 or something. You got any other thoughts here of game week 25? I mean, we were going to discuss some other matches, but we have Manchester City against Bournemouth, Arsenal against Everton, Liverpool. I guess has a couple matches, but they're at Crystal Palace and they're home against Wolverhampton. But any other thoughts for kind of a smaller slate here?
Yeah, smaller slate, but I mean, we get the League Cup final at the end here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what happens in that Arsenal-Everton game. Both teams needing points. Arsenal, huge win last week. We didn't talk about that, but I mean, you could see it in the reactions. Just kind of pulled that one out of a hat there at the end. Big in terms of, I mean, and then City drop points. Arsenal come back. They get all 3 points there when it looked like they were maybe going to drop points again. And then, of course, Everton, I think they won last weekend too against Leeds. Got the Seamus Coleman goal there at the near post. I don't know what Melier was doing, but yeah. So I'm intrigued by that match, and then we top it all off with a little final on Sunday. So it should be another good week, and hopefully, when we come back next Thursday, I think it will be. I guess we have some Wednesday matches, but next Thursday we're talking about a couple more wins.
Yeah, I think Saturday is mostly for the teams that are struggling, and Sunday is kind of for the bigger matchups with Tottenham, Chelsea, and then the Cup final. So Sunday should be pretty fun, but Saturday may be just as interesting because you have Arsenal and Manchester City playing, and you also have like the big relegation battle between Leeds and Southampton. But yeah, that's all we got here. So game week 25. For the content at RotoWire, rotowire.com/soccer trial, free 48-hour trial. We're going to get Chris out of here. He's got a meeting upcoming. He needs some more coffee. He's yawning a little bit, so we got to get him out of here. But you can find Chris at CHR08 on Twitter. I am at RotoZdroik. Thanks for watching this one, and good luck on your bets. Chris, is one of us going 4-0 again? I think that would be 4 straight weekends.
I hope so. Fingers crossed on that. I wouldn't bank on it, but let's see.
You wouldn't bank on it. We're banking on it.
We're banking on it.
We're banking on 8-0. We still haven't gone 8-0 yet. We'll get there. We'll get there someday.
I really want this parlay to hit. That's what I'm really after.
Okay. Parlay or bust, plus 303 odds. Let's win it.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Adam.